All right, so in this video, I will be showing you how to add the Pear Deck extension along with how to actually build a Pear Deck lesson so that you have interactive slides embedded in your math lesson so that your students can actually participate in their learning. Okay, so the very first thing is everything comes from Google Slides. So I either build one from scratch or I use one that I already have made in order to actually use the Pear Deck extension. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one that's going to be used for our example today. All right, so the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure you have the Pear Deck add-on or the Pear Deck extension. So if you don't, make sure you click on add-ons and get add-ons. So you can search for Pear Deck, but usually it comes up pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Pear Deck and install. So it's just going to ask you for your credentials. Make sure you use your Google accounts. And so once I allow it, I will then go ahead and have the actual extension. Okay. And the good thing is once you install it once, you don't have to do this every single time. Just install it once and you'll be able to use it. So the first time you install it, it's going to automatically have the Pear Deck startup. But just so I can show you for later on, whenever you want to kind of create a Pear Deck, always go to add-ons and it's going to show up after the first time. So you just have to install it once and you're good to go. So once you go ahead and open the Pear Deck add-on, it's going to open up the actual Pear Deck so that you can build the interactive slides. Okay. So on here, I'm going to show you kind of what I do or what I use in my math classroom. So I usually start off with a warm-up. And, since we're not in class, it's kind of hard for me to see their work. So the biggest tool here that I use on Pear Deck is definitely this draw feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply click on this draw feature. And so what it's going to be doing is now it's going to be turning this slide into a drawing slide. So notice that it didn't really change anything on my slides. And even when you share this with your kids, it's not going to affect your slides or your presentation at all. So all this clicking did is it actually turned this slide into an interactive drawing slide. So when you share this with your kids, they're actually going to be able to draw on their side of their screen so that you can kind of see whether they are understanding the warm-up or the problems or the questions, and you can go ahead and provide immediate feedback, which I think is really, really cool. So you don't have to make every single slide an interactive slide. Sometimes you just need them to write down some definitions and some notes. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Not everything has to be interactive. So probably the draw feature is probably my favorite one. The other one that I use a lot is this text box. Okay, so it's kind of hard to ask a question in a Zoom and have more than a couple of kids participate. So what I like to do is I like to ask a question on my slides and then just embed this text box question. So what that's going to do is it's going to now create a little area for them to type in an answer. So if you want them to kind of summarize their thinking or answer a question, make sure you have the question on the slide. And so when they're going to see is they're going to see a nice looking box on this side for them to type it out. So now instead of having maybe 2 or 3 kids interact, now you should have the majority of your kids answer this question. So you can provide immediate feedback and you can understand whether you need to, review a little bit more or if you could, be able to move on to the next thing. Okay, so again, I've gone over the draw feature, gone over the text feature. The other tool that I like to use on Pear Deck is definitely this multiple choice. So if I click on this multiple choice icon, you can go ahead and provide the actual multiple choice options. So you can provide them with a true, false. You could take away this if you want to do true, false, yes, no. You could add a lot of different choices here. It's up to you in terms of what you want the multiple choice options to be. But I like to do several problems where it's just a simple true or false, which gives me, an immediate thinking or gives me an idea whether my kids are understanding the lesson or not. Okay, so again, all this clicking that I'm doing and adding the Pear Deck slides, all it's doing is it's making this an interactive slide. So on their screens, they're able to draw or they're able to type, or in this case, they're able to actually select one of the multiple choice options. Okay. The other thing, I don't use this as much, but you also have this number feature. So if you just want to have like a quick answer or question in terms of it's just going to be a numerical answer, you could always click just this number feature. And then again, all it's going to ask the kids to do is to type in one of the numbers. So in this case, I just want them to see what number causes this to not be a function. Okay, so in this case, I want to make sure that they're typing in -3 instead of the -1, which a lot of them will type in. The other feature is definitely the draggable. So if you want them to kind of, instead of having a multiple choice, you want to have more of a visual, you could always add this draggable feature here. And so it will allow you to add, I believe, up to 6 options. Five options. You could add a bunch of dots. If you just want one thing, you can go ahead and add one thing. In this case, I just want them to drag one icon here. There's several options here. There's also numbers if you want to have numbers instead. Change the color. It's just a quick visual because you're going to see this little dot move for all of your students. So if you want them to just be able to answer or to drag this to one location, you could immediately see if they're understanding this or not. And so those are kind of the main things that I use for Pear Deck. I like to just simply click on one of them. It's pretty easy to make any slide interactive. The other one that they just kind of added is audio. So if you want to include, extra instructions, or if you want to include your voice, and then you kind of going through a lesson, before you add an interactive slide, you can go ahead and add audio. It's pretty easy. Just click on add audio, and then from there, it will give you the option to record yourself and upload it there. Okay, so those are the options here. These are definitely the most useful for me in my math class. You could also go through the template library. They do have some good stuff on here. They have beginning of the lesson, so like warm-ups and stuff, during the lessons, end of the lessons, like a summary. They do have a math template section here, so if you're interested in that, there are some on here. And what these will do, so let me go ahead and add one of these. I like to add kind of the summary one. So if I want them to kind of summarize their lesson, or in this case, pretend that their friend was absent, like explain to them, if you add these templates, they're not going to change your slides. So all I'm literally doing is adding it to my slideshow. So notice that it didn't change anything. I still have that previous slide here. So all it did was it created a response type question. So once the kids get to this slide, it will show up as a text box so that they could kind of type in and explain, pretend that your friend was absent from class today. Write what you would say to explain the lesson to your friend. Okay, so that's kind of how you build your interactive slides. So again, it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect any of your slides. The only thing I do recommend is if you are going to ask them to type in something, a response, make sure that your question is on the slide so that they know what to answer. When you are finally ready to share your lesson, you simply click on Start Lesson. And then it's going to give you 2 choices. I will be going over these 2 different choices in the next video. But you simply click on Instructor Paste. And so what this is going to end up doing, just going to ask you to log in. Select your account, and then you should be ready to go. So what's going to pop up is going to be kind of the instructions for your kids to kind of log in. So let's give it a second here. So then if you're doing it through Zoom or Google Meets, you could simply literally show this screen here and tell them to go to this website, and it will generate a password, and then they're in. You could also invite them through Google Classroom. You could give them the link, but that's how you add the extension, and that's how you build a lesson. Hope that helps.